So there are couples that I have seen, they got to know each other in 2 weeks and they got married, which is fine.
Wow.
They turn out fine as well. And there are people who have been dating for 3-5 years, they got married and they don't turn out fine.
Do you think that anyone with this kind of knowledge could get together?
Yes, I would say, yes, you can potentially date any type and work well with any type if you want to.
Hey guys, welcome to the 45th episode of the Learning Podcast. And if you're unsure, it's a Singaporean podcast dedicated to learning something new from every single guest on this show. And today, I have a very special friend that I met through LinkedIn. Cindy, thanks so much for coming.
Hello, thanks for having me.
Thanks so much for coming. So a little context about Cindy. I think the main theme of today's podcast will be about relationships, okay? So the first thing that comes to mind when I think of relationships will be like romantic relationships. But I think the work that you do extends beyond that. Like you go into corporate companies, fixing relationships at a very important scale, because at like a business level, if relationships are like bad, then you're losing money. There's so many kind of consequences from that if all those are
Or you
unfixed.
get fired.
Yeah, or you get fired, or like you burn bridges or all those kind of things.
Yeah.
So I think that this will be the main topic for today. A little context about Cindy. She's a co-founder and chief dating coach. Wow, what a title. Chief dating coach at Divine Connect Private Limited, which is a premium matchmaking agency. So I have so many questions about it. But she's also a corporate trainer at Relationship Studios Private Limited as well, and it's mostly involved in corporate trainings, and like I'm sure you guys do training around relationships. Is it like within like for singles? Is it more of the romantic side or like just the general working relationship side?
Okay. So Relationship Studio started off working with all sorts of relationship, but after that we've started like Divine Connect, which is under the SDN's care. I mean not care, but accreditation, right? So that deals with only the singles. So Relationship Studio does corporate, couples, parenting. Yeah, so only the single segment goes to Divine Connect.
Got it, I see. Okay, she's also an expert at Enneagram Personality. So I believe that she has ingrained a lot of her work and using this as like a benchmark platform or tool in all
framework.
kind of work or framework, right?
Yes.
So I'm sure she will be able to share a little bit more about Enneagram, because I know there are like MBTIs. I know like some of my friends tell me like MBTI is like full of shit and all the kind of stuff. So I don't know, like I'm curious to know from your perspective, like what is better about this compared to MBTI and all this kind of stuff, right?
Yeah.
She's also author of 2 books, Suffering or Conquering Happy Marriages in Singapore and The Heart of Adulterous Woman, God's Redemption in Overcoming Shame. And she has also co-published a 3rd book, which is Voices of Courage.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah, Voices of Courage is in conjunction with a women empowerment group called Women of Courage. So it's a community, with a bunch of women that is into empowerment. Yeah. So we all co-authored that book.
Okay, like this is so crazy.
There's a lot of things.
Yeah, there's a lot of things. Even more things, right? She's a resident love expert at Class 95 FM. So prior to this conversation, I was just asking her about her experiences on being on radio, right? Like,
Yes.
I'm so intimidated. You're so experienced in like radio, so I'm like no one.
No, you're
right?
doing great.
No,
You're doing
I'm just
great.
like interested to just learn from expertise. Like, how is it really like being on radio versus like all this kind of podcast? So like, how do we get to there? It's quite an interesting thing as well. So I think there are basically 2 reasons why I think this conversation will be helpful if there are any listeners out there. One thing is, I think that improving on communication or improving in your skill of being good at relationships is something that will permeate in whatever you do.
Yeah.
Even if it's your work, people are things that we all interact with people at the end of the day, and it's inevitable that we need to form some kind of relationship. And why not be good at that skill? Because it will just help you anywhere and everywhere. Go far in life, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you can't be operating on your own, right? To get far in life, you need people, you need company and relationships. Yeah.
And the second reason why I think this podcast will be useful, right? It will be useful for people who are singles out there, people who are married out there, people who are engaged out there, or whatever way that you swing it. I think that like in whatever setting, I hope that she will be able to provide, let's say, some very interesting tips or step-by-step tips that is specific to, let's say, a younger demographic. Because I think like when you coach people, like there's a certain style where, let's say, if I'm looking at like Divine Connect, it's a premium matchmaking agency, I assume that it wouldn't be like for young people. So I think that the approach to coach them versus, let's say, coaching very young people, right, might be different. So I'm just interested on your specific take on, let's say, improving relationships for young people as well, like myself as well. So that's a little context about Cindy. Cindy, for those listeners, right, I know I gave an introduction, but for those listeners that don't know who you are, could you give a quick introduction about yourself?
Oh, okay. So you've done everything already. You did all the intro.
Oh, okay, got it.
Okay. But okay, in short, who am I really besides all these credentials? I'm a mother of two.
Congratulations!
Yay.
She just gave birth 3 months ago.
2+ months ago. Yes, that's right. So I have two wonderful sons. Okay, wonderful. If they fall asleep at night.
Hey.
If not, okay. And what else? So I am into relationships. That's for sure. My team is right now in Singapore and Malaysia. And we have also partners in Hong Kong that's doing our work. What else? People like to tell me their juicy stories. Yeah, so that's a lot, I guess.
Got it. So I'm always very interested in the starting origin story of anyone's endeavor. Like, so I'm just interested if you could maybe just paint a picture for someone who's when you're very young into starting this, if I may dare say, unconventional career route, especially when you were starting and in the early 2000s. I'm not sure, I'm just guessing, right?
Yeah.
I would say that maybe matchmaking or online dating, in fact, wasn't like even a common thing. So, like, could you maybe just share the origin story of how you started, what you're doing right now?
Okay. Actually, to start a dating agency is not my initial goal. I just want to help people in relationships. Yes. And for myself, because I failed in a lot of relationships. And for some people who know me personally, they know that I've been through a divorce at 24. 24 years old. So that year I got married, end of the year, the divorce. So like just ended the marriage in 1 year.
Fast.
So that was fast, right? Yeah, because at the time I was really just very young and, all stubborn, right? Everyone's stubborn. And I was like, I don't want to budge. I refuse to budge, and just, okay, call it quits since we're both very young, right? Yeah. So that was the time where I think I got to the rock bottom of my life, that I realized that I need to learn about relationship building. There must be a way to know where the problem is. Right? In order to fix an issue, I need to know where the issue is, where the problem is, right? Instead of just fixing the symptoms, I need to get to the root of the issue. And obviously, the root of the issue is me, because I'm the common denominator in all my relationships, right? So that must be me lah. So then that's when I got into exploring myself and getting to know more about myself, personalities, how different personalities interact. And that's when I got to know about Enneagram. Yeah, so then I went to the US, really learned about Enneagram, 11 days on the mountaintop with my teacher.
Okay, so slow down. You went to the US, is it for like a university's studies or?
No, it's like a retreat. Yeah, so it's not like a course in school that we take, right? It's more like a self-discovery program. Kind of stuff. Yeah. So there's 60 people in the session, and there are only 4 Singaporeans. The rest are all Americans and Australians.
Is it a US program or
Yes.
is it like it's US program?
It's a US program, and it's by this teacher. My teacher is Claudio Naranjo. He unfortunately passed on last year. Yeah, and when I met him, he was like probably 84, 80. Yeah, he's in his 80s. So that program itself is about finding yourself through the Enneagram. Yeah, so when I went through that particular program, I found out so much about myself and being in terms with my past and having closure. So that really helped me. And then I thought, wow, this Enneagram really works, So, okay, I want to bring this back to Asia, bring this back to Singapore and help other people in a way that I have been helped. So after the program, obviously, the thought was, if I knew this earlier, a lot of things could have been resolved, right?
A lot of pain could be.
Yeah, I would have a lot more clarity about my life. So it's like, I wish I know better. I wish I knew earlier, kind of thing. And I think that thought itself probably resonated with a lot of people in around me, right? In life, what are some of the things that you wish you know earlier or you know better, right? So I wanted to help people shorten their learning curve. So that is when I bring back the Enneagram framework and I use that to help people make sense, like, your personality type versus another person's personality type, and then what is our struggle and, my struggle and your struggle, plus together being in a marriage and how it explodes, right? Yeah. So how things can become toxic. And that gives a lot more clarity. And that also means that there will be some personal development work I need to do on myself. and there will be some personal development work that you need to do on yourself. Then, when this couple come together, so that will work out better. It will be a more positive vibe. So that's why I always tell people that it's not about finding the right person. It's about first being the right person yourself. Yeah, so it's a lot of personal development work, self-discovery, and that's how I started.
I think that's a very critical point. Like to me, the biggest challenge, at least right now, I'm even facing. I need to take this Enneagram test also. Yeah. But the biggest challenge that I think most people face is being self-aware about themselves, and it's very useful that you have this kind of framework to really identify yourself, right? So to follow up on the questions, right, could you share with us the thought process of how you found about your own Enneagram and how you worked on yourself, on like your weaknesses, and taking advantage of your strengths as well? Like, could you share that part of the story when you were discovering yourself through Enneagram?
The Enneagram. All right. So okay, so in the US, right, most of the coaches, they do not do online assessment, those kind of online tests. What they do is they sit down with the person and they do an in-depth interview, like just asking you questions and you just answer me as honest as you can, right? So by looking at what you say, how you say it, the speed which you say, what kind of data are you saying? Like how do you say it? Yeah. So it's a lot of like observation. Yeah. That's why to be an Enneagram coach is like not so easy. Yeah, because there's a lot of observations and a lot of like immediate responses to look out for. Like, what is the first response when I ask you a certain question? Did it throw you off your chair? Did you like have a lot to say, or did you like not much content there? Like you have not much to talk about. So that is what we call a typing interview.
Typing interview.
Yes. So in the US, this is what they do, like a typing interview process. So a coach has to be competent to do this. So through the process, we will be able to help you discover what type you are. However, in Singapore context, no time for that.
Oh, no time for that, okay.
I mean, if you have a corporate training of 20 people, right? I mean, by the time I type, everybody is one day gone. So that's not possible. So in Singapore, what we do to save time, we do an online test. Yeah, so online, 180 questions, you answer that in half an hour. So we have that preliminary results there, right? Of course, the test is never 100%, but I would say ours is probably like 95%, which is good enough. But of course, we follow up with a 2 days workshop to understand. So I think the workshop component is really important. And that was also why I was in that US program for 11 days. Yeah, so in Singapore, no time for 11 days.
An experiential event for you to force yourself to really ingrain those lessons that you learn.
Rather to explore your type. Yeah, so it's not so much about a prescription. Yeah, which is what most profiling tools do for you, right? Like they prescribe, they tell you you are like that. But Enneagram is not so. Even though, yes, you do the online test, it says that, but it doesn't mean it's cast in stone. You can sit into the workshop that we currently have, which is a 2-day, you can explore, right? What type you could be, and the trainer will be sharing about, this type tends to be like that. This is the autopilot way of them doing certain things. And so you can explore, take time to explore, right? And then towards the end of the journey, you would know, okay, so I know that, okay, I am this particular type, all right? And so it's very important. I always tell people, right, you don't learn this tool to go around like typing people, like, oh, you're this type lah. See, this behavior, so this type. Then it's like, like how comfortable would you be, right? I say, hey, yeah, you're so such a type 8, you're such a type 7. And you'll be like, what's this? Oh, you're putting a number on my head, right? So it pisses people off more than anything else. So I always tell my students, please don't go and do that. You can try to type it in your head, but you don't go and tell the person, because that person will be irritated. Yeah, so that person has to do his or her own discovery. And so for me, I did the online test first, and then I went through that discovery, and I know, I am this type. And there are evidences even from my younger days to know that, yes, this is my autopilot way of responding. These are my trained behavior, which I adopt later on. So the autopilot way of doing things is our core type, basically. Yeah, so that is something very different from most other profiling tools. Yeah, so for me then I realized, so I'm this way, this is how I'm driven, this is my greatest fear, this is something that I'm trying to avoid most at all costs, and trying to avoid these things, this is to what extent I would do, so different types have different autopilot way of doing things. So when I discovered about myself, I'm like, wow, time to do some self-reflection. Yeah, because for my type, I'm the very fast-paced person. Right? When we're too fast-paced and we talk too much, we don't reflect. So self-reflection, I think this COVID period is great. Like we have a lot of time. I have a lot of time to sit down and think through what I want in life, what really matters. Like, is it all about just career, or how about family? How about other aspects in life? So that was my personal growth lah. And different types tend to deal with relationships differently. So for my type, I think my blind spot is that in the past, I tend to take relationships as a project. So everything's like a project, no? So the project is to change the guy. The project is to revamp this guy. It's like a project, which is not supposed to be, ma.
Then what is the correct way?
I mean, relationship is a journey. It's not a project, right? There is no KPI like, wow, you must achieve this, then this is a happy, successful relationship. Yeah, so I think that was really one of my biggest blind spot. And due to that, I was impatient. I was impatient about change. Like, hey, you're not growing. I don't see any change. Okay lah, project not working out lah, bye-bye. Yeah, which is not good, right? Yeah, so relationship building shouldn't be that way. Yeah, but the thing is, subconsciously, this is how I operated. Without the enlightenment of Enneagram, I wouldn't know that part of me. I would just think that, what's wrong with these people? It's always other people's fault, not my fault.
Yes.
But after that, then I realized that, the way I deal with relationships have to change. Yeah, and that happens for not just my type. I mean, different types, they have different blind spots. So then I realized, wow, this understanding this blind spot is important, Yeah, it will help me to go further in life, to change the way I deal with people, to change the way I even see people, or even managing expectation. Then I won't be so frustrated, right, with things that is like almost impossible for another type. And I will also learn to be more appreciative for others for making the effort. Like, I know this thing is maybe very easy for me, but it's very difficult for you. So you might not do 100% because that's very difficult for you. So maybe when you do a 10%, I can acknowledge your effort already. Instead of still saying, hey, not good enough lah, you need to do 100. Then it's so difficult. Yeah, then you feel like, wow, this Cindy is so unappreciative. But actually it's because I fail to see that this is very difficult for you, and I did not appreciate you for that effort you put in. Yeah, so I think this whole journey really changed the way I see things, see people, and be more accepting towards people who are different. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm just very curious, right? Let's say, because you already have like a super strong understanding of this Enneagram, right? When it comes to, let's say, entering any kind of relationships or helping them improve it, would you say I know it's like maybe a stupid question, but would you say it's like an obvious thing to do? Say, okay, first do your Enneagram test before we even sort everything out, to really identify which sides are you guys on, and before working things out?
I think it makes things easier. Like, you don't have to be trying to figure out too much. So once you have that framework, because Enneagram provides a nice framework, right, on what could you be struggling with versus mine, and how can I support you better, and how can you support me better, instead of labeling me as being lazy or being this way or that way. Maybe could you even understand that I have a difficulty in certain things, therefore you can have more empathy towards me, and you can provide me with the support that I need. So that gives any kind of relationship that open communication, to even like set the right stage to begin with. So setting the right expectation and knowing what conflict to even look out for, like maybe between these two types, these are the potential conflicts. So now you can work things through, right? To know that, okay, to prevent that conflict, maybe these are some things we could do. Yeah, rather than, okay, you already come into that conflict and now you're trying to fix the issue, right? Then sometimes you might do more hurt and harm already in that process. So that's why I always think, no harm knowing your Enneagram type and working things through from there.
Because sometimes I think people, we would say, take it to life chances, to like you're going through life and events happen, then you recognize that, hey, this person would react in a certain way, and which you wouldn't have known unless you've gone through that experience, or you could have talked it out in a very direct manner using the Enneagram profile, let's say when you first meet people, is it?
Yeah. Okay, so obviously it's the double-edged sword, right? I also don't agree that, okay, you do your Enneagram test, okay, so you are this type. So I start to have a lot of preconceived idea about you. Then that is also no good. So I also need to cater some room for experiential knowledge. right? I cannot be like, okay, the test says your type is like that, like that, like that. Then I watch out for those behaviors in you. And then I have these preconceived ideas on you. Then it's not fair on you because then I'm not experiencing you. I'm just trying to tally what the test result says with who you are. Then you are missing the point, right? So it's about finding that balance. So knowing this framework, knowing what could be the tendencies, what could be your struggles. Then after that, how can we have that direct conversation to see how we can work things out? And when things happen, we're not too shocked because already we expected it, we already know that this personality type might struggle with this and hence this might happen. So then I might be more receptive, maybe more accepting, I may be more accommodating or having more compassion about your struggles.
Using it as a tool to empathize when something happens and not labeling it before anything happens at all.
Yes, yes.
Okay, so can I just ask, right, in terms of your work at Relationship Studios, like, could you maybe just share more about, like, let's say when it comes to, let's say, having this 2-day workshop, right? Like, has your company created like this Enneagram profile? Is it like a public available thing whereby people can just find online and just do themselves, or is it like mainly derived from your findings and your company?
Oh, it's actually a open source. So anybody can use it even from online and all that. But I think the value add that we give to our clients is the workshop itself, the experience within the workshop, and also the interpretation of the report. Because after you do the test, right, it's not enough to just read through, the test says I'm like that, like that, like that. I mean, there's no application after that. So that's not helpful. After any kind of knowledge and awareness, there must be some sort of application after that, right? What can I do to change? What are some of the 3 development homework I can do in the next 1 month to work on myself? So I think that portion is what we really bring in within the workshop. And then after that, we actually provide 1 hour one-to-one coaching with every single student in the class.
How big is this class usually?
15 people to 20, sometimes 25. So 1 hour to everybody.
That's a lot.
Yes. So you can see how labor intensive, but yet highly effective the program is, because it's not just a 2 days class. I'm sure you've been to workshops where, after 1 day, 2 day, then you're like, okay, feel good for a while, right? And after that, you just go back to normal.
It doesn't really make an impact.
It doesn't make an impact, and there's nothing you bring back and you actually apply in the long run. But for Enneagram, this is what we don't want. We see that it is really a very useful framework that you can bring back and use in your daily life, be it your relationship with your bosses, your colleagues, your spouse, your parents. So you can now see all these things, right? So that's why the one-to-one coaching after the workshop is for the students to share what could be their current challenge, what are some of the things that they want to work on, and maybe what are some of the tips I can give you pertaining to you on what you can do to work on yourself. So I think the most valuable part is the one-to-one, which most of the maybe trainers don't provide.
I mean, when it comes to challenges, right? Because like I talked to you previously, like pattern recognition, you have conducted dozens or hundreds of workshops, right? There comes a point where you like, I've seen this situation before. I know the challenges that you guys face, right? Could you maybe just share maybe more on a generic story, or maybe if there's a specific story you could share, but more of the generic challenges that you always come across and you're like, this is always the same challenge that perhaps Singaporean companies always face.
Okay. The typical challenge is to deal with a type 8 boss.
Okay.
Typical challenge.
What is the type 8
The
boss?
challenger, right?
Okay.
So a challenger is like strong, very direct. They come in with that strong aura. Okay, so you can. I mean, sometimes they talk in a very condescending way. They can be loud. And when they get angry, you see things flying. Sometimes, again, depending on the self-mastery level. So if it is a low mastery one, they can be like really throwing things in the office. Higher mastery ones, maybe they don't do that because it's quite toxic behavior.
So what do you mean high mastery? Like the degree to that they are a challenger, is it?
So they are still the core 8 challenger, but it's just the way they express their anger can be different. Yeah, so a low mastery is like lack self-control. They just let it go, they just talk at a very rude manner, and they can be condescending in their tone. Sometimes people feel like they don't respect others, and they bulldoze their way, can be too aggressive. So a higher mastery will be one that would have worked through these challenges and can put it across in a more assertive way. And then they are less hurting in the way they express their anger. Yeah, so again, from a low mastery to the high mastery version of this particular type, this person also need to go through some self-development journey lah. So of course, unfortunately, not everyone is under a high mastery type 8 bosses. Some of them are lower mastery. I mean, general average people are between low to moderate. Very few attain a higher mastery unless they have really done personal development work and very high self-awareness. Yeah, so most people are low to moderate. So they do get type 8 bosses that are always challenging them. They're always very fast-paced. They get impatient. They're not listening. They bulldoze their way. So the staff gets very scared of the boss and is always accommodating, and they don't know how to handle this type 8 boss. So typically I always get this question lah, then how to talk to a type 8 boss, you know?
Yeah. How do you talk to a type boss?
Yeah, so type 8, because you must understand the core motivation of the type 8 is just different from the rest of the type, right? Their core motivation is to have control and to have power. So in any situation where they're out of control, they cannot be in control, then they would flare up, they would bulldoze their way, they would do whatever to get back that control. So if you don't account to a type 8 boss, and somehow he finds out from someone else, then he looks stupid, you see. Then when he looks stupid in front of others, it's out of control. So then they don't like that kind of situation. So sometimes employees, they don't understand why the boss need to flare over this kind of stuff. Yeah, or you know why this is something I see is a big deal and my boss thing is like, not important. Or why I think it is a big deal, why I think is a small thing and the boss thinks it's such a big deal. Sometimes that focus on different things, the priority on different things is due to the difference in type. So the type 8 boss will get super angry when they're out of control and they don't hear the main point. So basically for type 8, you must go straight to the point when you talk. Then when I know the type of that person who is asking that question of how to handle a type 8 boss, and as he or she shares his challenges about handling a type 8 boss, I now see why, right? Because you are not the type that is good at going straight to the point. So therefore, it becomes this type 8 boss needs you to go straight to the point, and this person's type's communication default style
doesn't complement it.
Is not straight to the point. They like to go beating around the bushes and sharing about, emotions, context, details. So there will be certain types on the Enneagram, they are just relatively more long-winded than others. And because of that long-windedness, okay. So the type 8 are just impatient. So therefore, they don't gel very well. So that's when I teach them that, for your type, I know why you are so long-winded, because you think the context, the details are important. However, when you talk to a type 8, these are less important, not in the first 10 seconds. So go straight in and just share the problem statement in the first 10 seconds. If you don't share that problem statement in 10 seconds, you didn't catch his attention, then you're gone. He's not interested anymore. And he'll be like, can you quickly go straight to the point? Like, hello, can you hurry up? And then if you still don't get to the point, one type 8 CEO actually told me this. Oh, then I just tell the guy to go out and write me an email. So it's like, just because you didn't get straight to the point, you're wasting more time going out to write an email. So that is like stupid lah, like wasting more time, right? So that's why after learning the Enneagram, people now know, this is their preferred way of treatment. And then the type 8 bosses, there was one time I was doing a team bonding for a company, and the boss himself is a type 8. And it provides like a open sharing kind of setting. So I got the type 8 boss to share about himself, right? So he said, I'm this kind of, if you think I'm wrong, just tell me I'm wrong lah. It's okay one. So they are very direct, they are very straightforward, they can take negative feedback and that's fine. Just tell me. As long as it's constructive, just tell me. And then the staff, being some other types like the peacemaker or the helper, they're just all very nice. Peacemaker is like, you mean you can tell the boss he is wrong? That's like out of their mind, especially so in Asia culture. Like out of their mind that, can tell my boss he is wrong. Can just like so upfront with the boss. Won't I get fired? So when the type 8 boss say, no, I actually like you all to tell me upfront. If I'm wrong, just tell me, because this is constructive feedback. And if you tell me I'm wrong, Number one, it shows me you are thinking. Number two, it tells me you care enough for me to tell me about it. Right? So you see the perspective is just different. So for the type 9 peacemaker, right, their default mode is like, you go sweep things under the carpet, be nice, be diplomatic. Even if I want to deliver a bad news, right, I must wrap it up nicely. And that's not the style type 8 likes. They just want it like, just give it to me lah. No need to wrap so nice. No need to sugarcoat one. Just tell me where the problem is. Yeah, so that is when the default mode is already clashing. So now with this like team bonding session that we did, right? So the type 8 boss just upfront tell everybody, this is me, this is like that. So if you have a better feedback, a better way of doing things, just tell me, it's okay one. If I'm wrong, just tell me also. Oh, then everybody was like, oh, like that, can okay. So it kind of changes the way they see the type 8 boss right now. Now they know, oh, this is actually the way my boss prefer to be treated. Yeah, so it's very interesting. And one interesting session I had with a MNC CEO. Okay, and he's a CEO and he's a type
MNC.
8. Yeah, he's an MNC.
Okay.
You definitely know this company, lah. I mean, okay.
It's a big company.
It's a big company. We all have that app. Kind of, yeah, and it's
okay.
Yeah. Don't say what lah. Okay, so he's very interesting. He said, yeah, sometimes I know my type lah, being a type 8, right? I may be a poor listener. So if I go on and I talk, right?
He knows that he is like a type 8 already.
I mean the session. He knows he's a 8, and he says that I know I'm a poor listener. And there was one time I was just interrupting because type 8s tend to interrupt. Without finishing, letting people finish what they want to say, right? Jumping to conclusion too quickly. So what happened was one of his HOD told him, can you shut up and listen to me?
Wow.
Yeah, and that would be unimaginable, right, for most of us. But he was like, oh, okay. So from then onwards, he had a lot of respect for this lady.
Ah, wow. Okay.
So you see, type 8's way of operating is just different from the rest. Yeah, it's just very different, especially not in Asia culture. It's like not so common,
especially in the MNC also. I would think that like manners are usually very like formal. Like
exactly. Yeah, so you'll be surprised, right? So from then onwards, this type 8 CEO has a lot of respect for this person. So the moral of the story is type 8, they make friends with people who dare to fight with them. So it's very different. It's very
that
different.
Makes sense,
yeah, so they need someone who can have a mind of their own, make a stand, and fight. And they're okay to fight, like, in the meeting room. Okay, you share your views, I share your views. Okay, I disagree because da-da-da. And all is just not personal, right? It's just laying down on the table and let's just discuss, right? And then after that, they can still go out as friends, for beers, happy hours, and that's fine. So that's how type 8 operate.
Others cannot detach that.
Yeah, some will get very affected, right? They will take it very personally. Yeah, but 8s, they're fine. So that's the thing, right? So when you understand how they operate, and this is their preferred way of being treated, then we
treat them that way.
Yeah, then we can actually alter the way we do things, right? Oh, they're like that, huh? Oh, talk to them must like that one, huh? Like, oh, so direct, huh? Oh, wow. So sometimes they're just by default not so direct. Then now they have to pick up a new way of communication. Yeah, so that is how we see it's a very common organizational issue with dealing with a type 8 boss. Of course, there are different types of boss, but 8 is like deemed as the most challenging, especially in Asia culture.
Onto that Asian culture, right? Because I always have the impression that I'm not sure whether it's an Asian or like a Singaporean thing whereby like most people are like peacemakers, people are quiet. Because of course there are like those people who are like challengers and others as well, right?
Yeah.
Do you think it's like an Asian thing or a Singaporean thing, like from your experience? Because I'm sure that you have at least worked with like MNCs or maybe more like international communities, right? Do you think it's like a Singaporean thing or is it just like it's a norm that there are more peacemakers? Like a lot of questions, like what are the different distributions on a global level? Like, is there a stats? Okay, in a world that is usually about 1 of every 10 person you meet is a challenger, that kind of stats? I'm not sure, but
yeah, that's a really good question. I don't have the stats for global, but in Singapore, I think with a sample size of like 20,000,
okay,
you can at least get like 28%. They are the peacemaker type.
28%,
which is a lot.
That's a lot. That's a lot. Okay,
which is like probably 1 in 3. Like you ask them what you want to eat, anything.
That's what I feel about a lot of Singaporeans. I'm not sure like people I feel like, why don't you want or like have an opinion on
Have an
something?
opinion, right? Yeah. So that's one. And also with the overlay, what we call a cultural overlay, where in Asian culture, there's this Chinese saying, 以和为贵.
Wow,
So
okay,
don't
sorry.
fight,
Okay.
right? Don't fight, right? Just be peaceful. Peaceful equals to wealth. That's what it's trying to say. So yeah, just be peaceful, right? Don't fight. And so it gels in with, again, the type 9 peacemaker. So when you are of a certain type and then plus the cultural overlay, then it pans out very differently. Yeah, like for example, in certain culture, let's say Japan culture is like a type 1, very, go by the book, perfectionist, very hierarchical. Okay. So everything is like to precision. Yeah. So I do have, so there's like a cultural overlay. Not all Japanese are this type, obviously. There are Japanese who are other types that likes to break rules. There's other personality types. So they might probably have a harder time, or they have another side of them that they adopt, so in order to blend into the culture. However, I have also friends who are Japanese who cannot stand the culture and just migrate. Yeah. So that happens. So there's a cultural overlay thing, plus also upbringing, family overlay, plus your core type. So there's a lot of layers in there. So that's why I say Enneagram has a lot of depth there. It's not just the 9 types. Yeah.
Okay, this might be I'm not sure it's a sensitive question, but would it be right? What would you say to someone that says that, okay, it's better being, let's say, a challenger compared to being a peacemaker? Like there's a level of inferiority between them because...
No, actually no. Every type has their strengths and every type has their blind spots. So, and every type has different challenges, but it's all equally difficult to overcome for every type. So there's no better or not better. But of course, yes, the society do deem certain types being more favored in certain environment or situations. Like, for example, if you are type 8 challenger male, that's great. But if you are female, then how?
What are the differences?
Gender difference.
I don't know. I think could you elaborate more on that? Like how so? Like
because challenger being in control, right, and loud and taking charge and all that. I mean, if it's a male being like that, it's like, okay, great leadership qualities, right? Very man being like that. But if it's a female being like that, is it okay or is it not acceptable? And that's when I do get like female type 8s having quite a lot of struggle. Sometimes they're like, yeah, I feel like I'm a man in a woman's body. That's one. Sometimes they even like, I'm an 8. They cannot stand the fact that they are an 8. They even try to deny.
They don't like that label on them, is it?
Yeah, to know that, actually I'm someone who likes control. But it's true because this is the autopilot, right? If you're not given control, you're uncomfortable. So that is the given fact, what? But to be, a type 8 is like, not so nice. Like, okay, being a woman, you want to be a peacemaker. Like it's more
really
nice.
Okay.
Or maybe a helper. Like there's a gender thingy.
Like a gender stereotype on what you should be for certain genders?
Yeah, like for example, okay, the helper sounds like great if you are a female, but how about a guy being a 2? Is it too feminine? Yeah, so there are this kind of a gender thingy playing out, and therefore different ones, they have different struggles.
Got it. Okay, so actually I'm very interested to ask you in terms of your time as chief dating coach at Divine Connect Private Limited, right? Can you share like in terms of matchmaking, what is the art to matchmaking someone? Okay,
the first thing first, we must establish the fact that opposites attract, similar ones attract too. Okay? And the key thing is to have 2 persons that could work through their differences and are willing to work through their differences. So it will be good to have someone that is like having some sort of commonalities, but yet some differences. Yeah, you can't be like 100% the same, then it's like no fun. Then you can't be like too different with 0 thing in common, then that's very hard. So in order to build that chemistry, there must be like some things in common and some things that are not the same. Yeah, then there's variety. There's something to talk about. So the thing is, when we match people, there's no formula as to like this type and this type good match or this type and this type not good match. It's not true. Every type and every type can be a good match. However, for different reasons, you will also have different conflict.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's different set of conflict. So then the thing is, our job as coaches, we are trying to prep them for the different set of conflicts that they might face. So if you are dating maybe a type challenger and a peacemaker type dating each other, what could be the possible challenges? What is the strength and synergy in this couple? Yeah, so you want to bring out the best in each other, right? Then what can you all do to support each other? So it's having that awareness and the preparation to deal with differences and conflict, right? That will help the couple to go far.
When you talk about preparation, how do you do preparation? Like, do you talk to them, okay, because you're like these kind of characters, that these are the potential challenges that you got. How do you bring them through preparing them for the conflict
we
that
do
might happen?
have coaching.
Okay.
Yeah. So with me, there's a team of another 5 other dating coaches. So our coaches would like advise them like, okay, you are this type and you're going to meet this particular type. So this could be the strengths between the two of you, and this could also be the relationship blind spots, and this could be some of the conflict. So if that person do something like that, please don't be too shocked. I hope it doesn't throw you off the chair, because this is the flip side of the same coin for this type. So it's about managing expectation, and then it's about conflict management. Yeah, so being aware is the first step. And then when it shows up, how are you able to deal with it in a constructive manner is the next thing. So I would say first self-awareness, then conflict management. Yeah, that's the 2 main thing that I would really advocate for anyone who wants to be in a relationship. Yeah.
When you talk about conflict management, let's say to people that don't even have the privilege to have like coaching in the first place, right? How would you suggest, let's say, like your younger demographic like me, let's say if I'm talking to my girlfriend, right? Let's say, how do I prepare for conflict management in that sense?
Yeah. So the thing is, that's why I want to be here to help people shorten learning curve, right? So, but then in the first place, it's good to actually slow down and think through, like to do self-reflection. Yeah, whether you have a coach or no coach, right? I think this is the basic 101, to just do some self-reflection, what went wrong, and then what did the other person want, why are we having this conflict even, and to pinpoint where that problem is. And it's true, sometimes the 2 individuals really would not have clarity of where the problem is, because it's always your words against my words. It's just 2 parties here. That's why it's always important to have a neutral third party involved.
Okay, that is important.
Yes,
okay.
because the third party would actually tell, actually your expectation is ridiculous. Actually, this person is... So what is the norm here? Yeah, so because it's always you in relative to me. So in relative, so for example, let's say I am feeling emotional most of the time. So am I too emotional a person, or perhaps you are the one that you are too detached, maybe, right? So or it could even be both. So who has that clarity? Who can tell you where are you on the scale, right? So a neutral person would be able to help. Yeah, otherwise it will always be these 2 parties, right, having this tug of war. It's very difficult to solve a problem.
In your common experiences, right, what is the most common reason of why people are separated from each other, divorce, or like don't? What are the most common things do you see what makes relationship breaks
down, right? Yeah, it's about not knowing better.
Not knowing better about
what could also be the solutions out there. It's like at that point in time, why I broke up this relationship, because I didn't know better, or maybe I didn't want to. Okay, and why I didn't want to, because I didn't know better. So it's always about this, I didn't know better. And now after, with all this experience of learning and Enneagram, now I look back. Okay, I know my ex is what type. I know why are we always having this conflict about this specific thing all the time. It's like a vicious cycle. And now knowing a better way to do things, I could actually see things differently, and I could actually respond differently. There's a better way to do things, which I didn't know, right? So like, we're all suffering. Okay lah, call it quits, right? So it's all about not having enough clarity of where the problem really is. So I would say, to be honest, a lot of relationships break up prematurely because they haven't explored all options yet. They haven't explored all possible help available out there. Yeah, and I mean, if you've said, okay, I've done all my coaching, I've done everything, and we still prefer not to work things through because it's too difficult for both parties. Okay, at least you have that clarity. But a lot of people don't have that clarity journey. And then it just ends prematurely, and then one party will have moved on, and the other party is still like hanging there, taking a long time to recover, haven't had a good closure yet. And I would say a lot of people actually found closure in our workshop itself. Yeah, like one of our students just said, oh, my boyfriend just ran away. Like no answer, no news, no reply to my calls, and just nothing. I just don't even know why the breakup even happened.
Oh, just disappeared.
Just disappeared.
Okay.
And only through the workshop, then, this person knows that, why.
By understanding his personality type or her personality type,
yes,
then it would make sense.
It will make sense why this person ran away, and what about me made this person run away.
Okay, that's a very important part as well.
Yes, that's very important part. That's why people always tell me, why am I always attracting the wrong people, right? Why always this kind of people? Then my question is, what about you that keeps attracting this kind of people?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a very self-critical part where I think most people would not
even think of, right? It's always like, I met the wrong one, I met the wrong one. Then the question is, or always the married ones come to me, lah. Then what about you keeps attracting this kind of people? I mean, it's good to know, because you don't want to be in this cycle anymore. So you better change the way you operate, right? So that is very crude, yes, but that is the hard truth that will really set you free. Yeah.
Okay, I know this is like a very theoretical question I'm going to ask, right? But is it right for me to say that if there are two, let's say there are two straight people, a guy and a girl comes together, and assuming they're radically open-minded into understanding each other Enneagram personalities, right? Do you think if these two people come together, right, do you think like, assuming everyone in the world had that kind of self-realization.
Yeah, okay, my question is why you need to keep emphasizing on straight people.
Okay, no, I don't know. But then, assuming if everyone is radical, would it be right to say, right, if I walk down the street, right, and if I saw a girl, right, and assuming she was radically open-minded and she knew it, right, do you think that anyone with this kind of knowledge could get together with the kind of empathy that they have?
Yes, I would say.
Okay, wow.
Yes,
okay,
you
wow.
can potentially date any type and work well with any type if you want to. Okay. Yeah, it's really not about just picking the right one. It's about whether you have that right one to work through things and being committed to work through the differences with you. So actually, right, if you think about it, right, if I were to just dump this relationship and I go for another person thinking that it's going to be better, but do you know the work that needs to be done is almost the same? It's just that this one you do halfway, you don't want to do, right? So you dump it, right? So now a new person comes in, right?
New sets of problems?
Yes, and new sets of like fine-tuning and teething issues.
The tolerance level, am I right to say that? Tolerance level. People have different tolerance level on how much they would want to give in and give
precisely,
out.
right? But it's not always about giving in as well, right? So it's about working through a system that works for both parties, that both parties will be happy to agree on and is fair for both parties. So let's meet at a midpoint, right? And work things through. So I think with this framework, it gives a really clear, a clear perspective of where the midpoint is, where can we work towards, and then how can we find that common thing that works for both of us. Yeah, and in fact, different types have different ways. So that gives you how many permutation?
Quite a lot.
Do your math.
Yeah.
So you have 9 times 8 times 7 times 6 times 5 times 3 times 2 times 1, right? Yeah. So that is the amount of permutation that there is. So that's why there is really no one-size-fits-all solutions to all relationship problem. There isn't. Of course, you can say, practice listening skills, Okay, that's the generic stuff, right? Given, some types are just poor at listening. Some types, they're just always listening but not even talking. So that is also another problem. So it's all about finding that balance.
Okay. Very, very interesting, right? Can I just go one step back into more of the corporate workshop? I'm very interested in that because currently your companies only do workshops. Is there any other kinds of work that you guys do for clients? Let's say because I was reading this book recently where there's this company that they let's say have a mixture of all these kind of different personality profiles, and it's literally part of their job website. Like anyone and everyone can see them. So prior to working with this person, they are able to understand, okay, this person is this type, and I know how to let's say work around it. Like have you ever, aside from conducting workshops, right? First part, is there any other kinds of work that you do? And so the second part of the question would be, is that do companies engage you for long terms in terms of like fixing this into, let's say, their whole company organization, aside from just workshops?
Yeah, so the whole suite, right? The whole suite, if let's say it's a corporate work, right? So we'll come in, okay, Enneagram is the first step of diagnosis to know like, okay, everybody's personality types, what could be some possible challenges. And then from there, we could even do a training needs analysis because different staff need different kind of training. Right? Then from there, then we say, okay, like let's say this person, not so assertive. Maybe the type 8 traits are really low, not so assertive. Maybe this group of people needs to probably go for assertive communication, follow up courses that we can provide after that. So it becomes like a whole suite, right? So it becomes like, okay, after diagnosing what is everybody's strengths and weaknesses, I can even share with the team leaders, how can you all work better as a team? I could even share with the HR, what could be the training needs for certain groups of staff, what could be the follow-up training that you might want to send them for. Some of the courses, we have them in-house, some of the courses we don't have that we can recommend other partners to do it for you. Yeah, and then sometimes we even do like staff engagement kind of projects with client. Yeah, and then, but you can see everything is still grounded in the Enneagram. So it's like a common lingo for everyone. Yeah, and also we do leadership workshop or even succession coaching.
Oh, succession could like finding next CEOs for companies, is it?
Finding the next maybe HODs, like middle management, the HODs, so that somebody is there to take over, you see. I mean, the middle management, if let's say this company is building a middle management, so who are the people and then how to groom them? Because given people are good in their job, but they may not be good in leading people. Yeah, so I can be like, say, a IT programmer, right? I'm good with my programming, but doesn't mean I'm good at managing a team of programmers. There's another skills. So that portion, then we also come in to help that person see the personality part. Like which part are they still having a mental block or self-limiting belief that they cannot be a good leader? And then from there, we show them, your type can be a good leader by doing this, by being this, and having a new mindset about you being a leader. So we come in and empower people on their jobs, yeah, and to help them see the blind spots in them so that they can work on themselves to, again, be the higher mastery version
of who they are.
Of their type, yeah. So your type don't change. You are still the same type. It's just that your mastery level moves, right? So if you move up the higher mastery level and imagine the whole team move up in mastery level,
things will be very nice.
Things will be so much easier, right? Like it's like nothing personal. You know that this person is nothing personal. This person is just being like that. Then you would know how to handle a lot of things better and increase productivity. So that whole suite lah. So sometimes we take on projects for like 2-3 years.
Wow, okay, that's very long. It needs time to be ingrained in the organization.
Yeah, and then sometimes we do one-to-one coaching. So like maybe 1 hour coaching for 3 months each person. So that's when like it's just like you kind of see a organizational psychologist like that lah.
Okay, I don't even have experience of seeing an organizational psychologist.
Okay, it's like a temperature check, right? How are you doing this month? Right? How are things, right? Okay, so tell me, how has things progressed since last month to now? Then then I give you a bit of homework to do, and then you go back and practice. Like let's say, tell yourself some self-affirming statement for the next 10 days. And read out this list to yourself. Okay, great. So how do you feel after that? So different homework for different people. Yeah, and then checking in with them. So that's just to make sure the emotional, the mental health of the team is okay. Yeah.
Would you say, okay, I know like, okay, I'm definitely gonna like go more into this Enneagram after this, right? But why not MBTI?
Very good. I mean, there's a typical question I get from every show, right? And every person I met.
Yeah.
Okay. So like you said, right, there are some flaws about MBTI. I'll not say flaws, but some areas that we're not able to address, right? So I was like a psychology student in the uni days. I did all these tests, right? One thing I found was not satisfactory was like, hey, how come this test just tell me I'm like that? And then that's it. Then what's next? Then you're trying to put me in a box.
You're finding room for improvements?
Correct.
You're lacking.
Yes, the lack is there, right? It's like, you just tell me I'm like that, then so what? And then a lot of people would feedback to me that most profiling tools tries to put me in a box, which most people don't like. So that is what I realized too, right? So, and most of these profiling tools, they tell you what you are like, which is the personality traits. Traits, keyword traits. But it doesn't tell me why I'm like that.
Oh, okay.
So the thing is this, right? Different types, they can behave in the same way. They can exhibit the same traits for different reasons.
Does that matter? How does that matter?
Because the motivation matters, right?
So to improve on it, then you need to
go deep into understanding why the person is doing such a thing. Then you can get to the root of the issue to solve the problem. Yeah, like it doesn't mean that if the person talks loudly, you have to talk loudly, right? Maybe that person talk loudly based on this person's type is because this person is feeling vulnerable already and is feeling hurt. And maybe what you need to do is just to ask the person, actually, how are you feeling? Then maybe the person will open up, the floodgates will open and start sharing a lot of
different
things.
triggers.
Yes, the trigger points, right? So you might not use the typical communication thingy, it says, if the person talks loudly, then you have to match the energy level and blah, 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 blah. It's not so true because you got to know the intent and the motivation behind why the person is behaving like that. So Enneagram explains the why. And the why is very deep and is very important. Then you know how to respond in an appropriate way. So that's when I realized, Enneagram tells you the why, which most profiling tools don't. They just tell you are like that. And I mean, honestly, it feels like a prescription. It's like, okay, the test say I'm like that. Then after that, people will use the test result and say, because the test say I'm this, so I'm like that. So it's like, it's not helpful at all. Like, it doesn't help me to get out of my comfort zone. It doesn't help me to be better. It doesn't help me in relationship building because people are using the test result as an excuse to justify bad behavior, which is not supposed to be the case.
And it's not helpful at all.
It's not helpful at all. So then that test itself becomes a shield. Like, okay, I'm like that. So it's not helpful, right?
Got it.
Yeah. So for Enneagram, I always tell people, rule number 1, your type is not an excuse for bad behavior. Yeah, you cannot say, because I'm this type, so I'm like that. Cannot. The purpose of knowing your type is so that you can get out of the box.
So work on yourself, most importantly.
Yes, and move up the mastery level. So in fact, I always tell people, right, like what my co-trainer will share, the purpose of knowing your type is to lose your type. Lose as in L-O-O-S-E, lose. Lose the influence of the negative traits or the blind spots.
Because you become self-aware of the negative side of your parts, but yet triple down your strengths that you have.
Yes, all right? And to ultimately lose, L-O-S-E, right? So you become more fluid so that you can now be more versatile in dealing with different people in different situations.
Got it, okay.
Wow, a lot, right?
Yeah, okay. I'm just curious, right? Like when you were going into this Enneagram, let's say that if there are listeners that are interested, because there's really so much information out there on the internet, right? So I'm just wondering, are there any kind of resources or books specifically? Because I remember I saw some Instagram tweets or some social media stuff about Enneagram related books that they can read, right? Is there any that comes to you that you think are easy for people to digest?
Okay, let me answer this question in 2 parts. Number 1, I do not suggest to read a book first.
Okay.
Yeah, you read the book after you have the experience in a workshop.
Okay.
Then you top it up with books, then that would help you grow very fast. Because honestly, I do have students that come to me and say, I have been reading Enneagram books for the last 3 years and I still cannot figure it out.
Okay.
Yeah, it's true, because when you want to understand human beings, you cannot understand in a theoretical way. Yes, you got to have real life interaction with people, and I typically tell people that it is important to learn Enneagram in an intuitive way, whereby you interact with people, understand how that personality type make you feel. Then you're able to sense better, what type this person is, or if I'm feeling agitated about this or impatient about this, okay, please bear with that person because that person is being that type, that's the way they talk, So being more aware, I think that is most helpful. And when you know people who speaks the same language, like your classmates, you can always go back and check in with them, right? And say, hey, I have a colleague, same type as you, he irritate me in this way. Actually, can you share with me more? How come this type like that one? Then you will share, right? You will share with me, right? Which helps me better understand my colleague. So I would say learning Enneagram is not just the knowledge, but it's the community, the experiencing, sharing that helps you to gain that experience.
So for someone who don't have the luxury of, let's say, going to this workshop so you would suggest is to really get together with a community of friends to really embark on this journey together, to really ask each other questions, to make it an experiential thing, because that is itself a workshop lah. Yeah,
you can. I mean, if you can organize that, that's great, right? But of course, you need a good facilitator to do all that. Yeah, and of course, to set a very safe environment for people to share, because sometimes people share very vulnerable stuff, right? Very personal stuff. And if the person is not being protected, and there's no moderator then it might turn into a personal attack. It's like, hey, I really am so vulnerable. I share everything very raw, with you, and then you guys just
like
judge me this way or what, Sometimes, sometimes within the Enneagram sharing, we talk about the dark side. It's like, on a bad day or being toxic, right? I'm capable of doing this.
Very dark stuff.
Dark stuff, right? Then if there is
and you can't help not to judge. It's only human to judge.
Exactly, right? So when there is like a moderator, like to share, you see, this is all our struggles, and to normalize things a little bit, to know that it's not just this type that has the dark side, but every type has theirs. It's just different. Yeah, then that helps everyone to be on the same page that, okay, we need to have empathy lah.
So extreme empathy.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, and this kind of things, I don't think you get it from just reading the book itself. Like when you hear it live from people, I think the interaction itself, it makes it come to life.
Okay, got it. Okay, I'm very convinced of this Enneagram thing. I really need to do more homework about it, and I'll definitely follow up with you some questions, right? But to end of this podcast, right, I know it's been a while, right? Can I just ask you just a few short fire questions?
Yes.
What's the best relationship advice you have ever received?
I've ever received. Actually, in fact, I don't have.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because I have not received. That's the thing.
Receive from yourself. It could be receiving from yourself.
So from others, don't have. Really don't have. Yeah. I mean, the advice I always get from people like, don't get married too early lah, which I don't think is a good advice lah. Okay. It's like more like out of bitterness that people are saying that to me, right? Okay. But one good advice that I have learned and I would like to share with people is that really we are the common denominator in all our relationships.
We as in?
Ourselves lah. I am the only common denominator in all my relationships. And therefore, if I want things to be better, it's really, I got to start with myself. So the power of knowing yourself, myself, is very powerful. Yeah, it's like it can open up a lot of doors that I didn't know existed. It opens up like different solutions to a situation that I didn't know was there. So it comes with that self-awareness, and of course the self-love is very important, because if I cannot love myself, I cannot expect others to love me. So self-love is important. So these are the two main things.
I know it'd be a very superficial question to ask, but what's the best advice would you give someone in starting to love him or herself?
Oh, no, that's not a superficial question, because I cannot assume that all people know how to love themselves. It's true. I mean, some personality types, they just struggle more than others in terms of loving themselves. The first thing is to go into ourselves, like spend time with ourselves, building a relationship with myself. Like, am I comfortable sitting in a cafe myself? Am I comfortable just doing something for myself? Not for others, but for myself. So really for my own relaxation, for my own learning, for my own experience. And I don't need someone to come along with me. I can just do it on my own. Yeah, so that is really loving myself and really seeing my strengths and appreciating myself for who I am. Yeah, so that's the fundamental parts about loving self.
Got it. Thanks so much for sharing. I think you answered this question, but what's the worst relationship advice you have ever received?
That one, lor. Don't get married so early. Or wait till 3 years, then you get married. Actually, there's really no time.
It's really the time right for you.
It's the time right for you, plus have you had enough clarity about where you're heading? That's it. So there are couples that I have seen, they got to know each other in 2 weeks and they got married, which is fine. Wow. They turn out fine as well. And there are people who have been dating for 3-5 years, they got married and they don't turn out fine. So the time is not a determinant of whether the relationship will work
Wow,
out.
I'm surprised that you say that. So that you will say that there's no like fixed amount of time, but it really comes to the self-awareness of these two people who really know what they want, their strengths and weaknesses, and how to fight their conflicts together into becoming a better whole than their individual selves.
Yes, that's right.
Wow, okay,
Yeah.
that's something that surprised me. 1 year from now, what would be the best things that you need to happen that will make it the best year for your career and your company so far?
Wow, so
Or,
夸张.
or your family, or
Really
relationships?
to like maybe to impact like another 10,000 lives for the next 1 year.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Are you keeping
yeah.
track, or is it like a workshop thing?
No, we are keeping track.
that's
So
very
every
nice.
month, how many people go through our workshop, how many people that we manage to coach and all that. It's how many souls we impacted. I mean, lately I've been receiving like testimonials from people like telling me, after attending your workshop, I see my colleague in a different light. Now I'm more patient with this
And
colleague.
that's like, I would say almost priceless and very important lah.
Yeah, it's like no amount of it's priceless, right? No amount of money is like can buy you this. It's really just a mindset shift, and I see that's really important, liberating lives. Because I mean, honestly, although it's just a simple personality thingy, right? But actually, within the workshop itself, I've seen lives being liberated. That they sometimes they hold a grudge on something, and now they're being liberated, or maybe they need a closure, but that didn't come because like that story, right? The guy just ran away, and they got the closure through the workshop. And to be honest, sometimes people tear up in the workshop, and not because they're sad or what, right? It's more like tears of realization.
And the beautiful thing is that it's working on themselves that made them close it. And I think that's fascinating.
Yeah, and there was one time I remember, it was during COVID season. This lady literally teared up over Zoom. So we were all shocked, like, okay, because physical class I can understand. That is pretty common. But over Zoom even. And that story, that really showed me or help our team to see that what we're doing is really priceless and is impacting lives. We don't know who we are impacting, or what we share in class can have such a big impact on some people. It got them thinking about some things, which is great.
I can only imagine how satisfying what you do will be, because you do change people's lives. So I think, that's what I think is so fascinating about your career and why I wanted to have this conversation in the first place. So Cindy, thanks so much for joining me on this conversation. I really appreciate you taking the time, right? For those listeners that want to reach out to you and find out more about you, where can they find out more?
Okay, so you can actually write into coffee at Relationship Studio.
I'll leave a link in the video description.
Yes. And of course, a shout out, like our program is WSQ funded and Skills Future funded. So
That's very nice.
Yeah.
And especially all the credits going out now, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
1st October.
Yeah.
So in fact, so the cost can be, you don't have to fork out any cash. It's a good time to come for some self-upgrading. So for those who are interested, feel free to write in.
Okay, thanks so much, Cindy, and hope to see you soon. And I'll definitely try to learn more about it. I think it's very, very interesting. Okay, thank you so much, man.
Thank you.